and that Mike is, quote, an open book and transparent to a fault. Well, that's not true. And she admits that he concealed things at her request. At that point, his response should have been something like, babe, I know the hell I have put you through, but in order to continue in ministry, I have to be transparent, 100% the whole truth. Exactly what Nancy was trying to avoid has happened. It's in front of the entire world. A couple of weeks ago, the months-long investigation into Michael Brown was released, and it was found that he did indeed engage in sexual misconduct. Several days ago, Brown's board rejected the findings of the independent study, and what was a bad scene has ignited into wildfire. What is interesting to me is that the question I've been asking, which is, why did he not fully disclose everything to the hiring board? Because withholding pertinent information is lying. Well, this was answered by his wife. She had pleaded with him not to tell, and he agreed. She said, blame me. She said it was all her fault. Was it her fault? Welcome to Morning Tea. Hello, I'm Joanne Jolie. So glad you're here today. So with the decision to reject the findings of the investigation, both sides are flinging accusations. I've read the reports and the statements so far, but what I want to focus on is the statement by Brown's wife. Her name is Nancy Brown. In view of all that has transpired recently, and also in light of the newly released Firefly report, I felt compelled to make a statement. I have wanted to do this for months, but I have been constrained by others. I am now free to speak truth to all those who are willing to hear. For the record, I am an extremely private person, and endeavoring to make this very public statement is truly beyond what I'm comfortable with. No one has asked me to make it, but for the sake of truth and honesty, I feel I must. Nancy goes on to describe herself as a no-nonsense person who stands for truth and justice. She also pointed out her marriage is almost 50 years old now. Wow, that's a great achievement. She also talks about what a dark and painful time she and the family went through, and it was terrible. Probably the majority of long-term marriages at some point deal with some heavy situation similar to this. They either fall apart or they find a way through. And I think this is what they did, and it's commendable. There was confrontation, there were confessions, there was forgiveness. It was all good. Nancy talks now about the vile accusations, what fantasies they are, and that Mike is, quote, an open book and transparent to a fault. Well, that's not true. And she admits that he concealed things at her request. In order for Mike to honor and protect me from even more pain, and because of the one and only covenant that God had instituted among his children, which is the marriage covenant, Mike consented to keep things between the five of us, even though he expressed the desire to shout it to the world. It was for me he did this, and not to save himself or hide. So if there is blame to be cast for not revealing things to more and more people, then I am the one to accuse and blame, not Mike. She said Mike consented to her request and that we should blame her. Yes, he consented, but not only did he fall down as a minister at that time, but he additionally fell to the age-old because you have heeded to the voice of your wife, Genesis 3:17. At that point, his response should have been something like, babe, I know the hell I have put you through, but in order to continue in ministry, I have to be transparent, 100% the whole truth, and not to shout it out to the world, of course, but in the private board meetings for potential preaching positions so that the members can have all the facts in hand to make the right decision for the ministry. And Nancy stresses this point. We also left the final decision of what was revealed in the hands of the husband. How we proceeded was left in his lap entirely, and it was his ultimate choice to keep things between us. And this is why, although Nancy would like to shift some blame off her husband, she can't, because as she correctly said, the final decision was his. If he had laid everything bare on the table, it's likely none of this ugliness would be happening today. To have others publicly uproot, scrutinize, and dissect all of this before the masses is nothing I believe God is behind or asks us to do, let alone in front of the entire world. Because Mike Brown did not fully disclose, as he should have, exactly what Nancy was trying to avoid has happened. It's in front of the entire world. All these horrible details to be scrutinized, and actually, this is exactly what God does. In the New Testament, we can see several examples of people exposed and what they did placed into the official record to be read by all down through the centuries for believers. Paul says to look out for this guy. Alexander the metal worker did me a great deal of harm. The Lord will repay him for what he's done. You too should be on your guard against him because he strongly opposed our message. These types of things are highlighted for us today so that we are going to fear and not make the same mistakes and bring discipline on ourselves and needless sufferings to our loved ones. He, that is Mike, has been accused of hiding sin and being deceptive by not telling others of this situation decades later. It's important to understand that Mike gave his word that things would be left there not only to me, but to the other couple involved. And through the years, Mike endeavored to do his best to keep that word and not bring additional shame on others by revealing details that would have certainly painted them in a bad light. It's really hard to read the rest of her letter. This all took place before viral social media and vicious mobs that eat this stuff up. And now the whole family is suffering, and I'm really sorry. Sadly, because of the online firestorm of accusations, my family has been impacted in ways unimaginable. No daughter should ever have to hear her father go over the details of ugly sins from decades ago, sins that were fully repented of, under the blood, forgiven by God, and now my children and grandchildren have been forced to decipher fact from fiction and decide whether or not their grandfather is a sexual predator, abuser, and deviant groomer. I agree. Yes, it's horrible. Wives, don't ask your husbands to conceal where it ought to be revealed just to protect yourself from further pain, especially in the work of the kingdom of God, where your husband is subject to a much higher standard and scrutiny. And husbands, don't listen to your wives when they ask you to do something deceitful. That is, applying for a job in ministry and not disclosing all the facts. You're going to open up a way for even greater damage in the future. Unimaginable pain is how Nancy describes it. She said in the letter that Mike consented to keep things between the five of us, even though he expressed a desire to shout it to the world. He didn't need to shout it to the world. He needed to tell it to the hiring board privately. What are your thoughts on this? Please leave your comments below. Before I go, I want to remind you about our live stream every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Arizona time. It's called Encourage One Another, and it exists simply to uplift, to set our minds in a good place as we head into a victorious week, winning our races and all the personal battles before us. Until next time, remember to look for the blessings because they are all around you. Bye-bye.